Welcome to the Grow Show with Glenn and Keisha.
How you doing today?
I am good.
Good.
I'm always
Listen,
good in your presence.
this is a professional show.
Oh, it's a professional show. Sorry.
And first, I want to take this opportunity to thank all of the subscribers who've been subscribing and listening and sharing. We have hit our 100 subscriber milestone. I think that's a good milestone. I think that's a round of applause.
To celebrate.
And so definitely we want to encourage you to continue to share, continue to comment, and any questions that you have that's coming in or that you have as you watch your shows, don't hesitate to just ask us. And today is one of those episodes, another one of those episodes. And we're kind of calling this one Leadership Q&A. Of course, you know that we talk to lovebirds, we talk to legacy leaders, and we talk to lifelong learners. And there were some questions that were submitted or that just come through the work that we do. We are leadership trainers. We do that type of work. And so I call this Dr. Glenn's show.
That's how certain you have to give me work, right?
I'm going to ask him most of the questions that you submitted or that, we tend to come across in our day-to-day work.
We're going to ask each other questions. You see, you're trying to bounce it off of me and I put it right back to us.
All right. So we have our fishbowl here. He calls it a fishbowl. I don't know why. There's no fish in it. There's only questions. And we're going to take it away, all right? So you start.
So I'll pick the first question and I'll ask you and you'll respond. Or you want to pick the first question?
You pick the question and you ask the question.
No, you pick the question and you ask me.
You see that's something deliberate? Okay, so I pick the question. I pick the question and I'm asking you.
Yes.
You can't answer this.
Exactly. So that's why. So I'll take it and I'll ask you. You see how we work and we shut up. This is science and we got this down back.
This is obviously
a beautiful black female, this person is saying.
You set that up for the right.
Often sexually harassed. Ooh, this person coming out the gate strong. Sexually harassed and never taken seriously for leadership roles. Keisha, how do you handle being a beautiful black female in what seems to be a male-dominated world?
This is a heavy question, but I also recognize that this is a very common question or common situation for women, especially those who are ambitious and they want to succeed, they want to climb the ladder. And in climbing that ladder, it does come with connecting with leaders who are in higher positions or who have to make that decision. I have certainly experienced it. And what do you do? I believe, first of all, you have to know who you are and stand your ground. It's very easy to fall into the trap of leading into that sexual harassment because you may feel that someone has the power to make or break your career. So it's very easy to kind of allow things to fall, but you don't want to go that route. You want to go the route of standing your ground, sticking with your ambition, and climbing that ladder the right way. And so stand your ground, and that means communicating to that individual that's not what you're about. Because, communicating. And then ask it to stop. Ask for that harassment to stop. If it doesn't, then the only recourse that I feel that you have in this moment is to communicate it to the upper person, right? Communicate it to ensure that it stops. And if it doesn't stop, then I think it goes back to now you as the individual. Is this something that you're willing to put up with in your career if nothing happens after you've initially communicated it? And if the answer is no, how can you find other opportunities? Really and truly. What would you say?
I'll piggyback. I have two things to say on that, but I'll ask you one thing first. Mm-hmm. So, you have a career spanning almost 2 decades. Mm-hmm. Have you ever been personally sexually harassed?
I have, but in my own business. So it's a different dynamic, right? So what that looked like was I am speaking to a male leader on getting an opportunity that will take my business to the next level. And and comments were made about, okay, I can write you this check, or I can put you into this big, beautiful office, and I can give you the world and all of that. And that sounded really good at the time because I was just starting my business, or in the very early stages of my business. This leader was extremely successful, extremely connected, extremely well known, and so it wasn't far fetched, the promises that were being made. But what kept me was the mentors. First of all, the standards that I had and the mentors that I had. And I immediately went to my mentor and I said, look, this is what is being promised. This is what being said. This individual also have the power to give the opportunity that I was applying for, that I was requesting. And I remember one of my mentors, she was like, well, that's very common of him, right? And just keep doing what you're doing. So I just immediately stopped communicating. Keep doing what you're doing, as in continue to go the route that you originally wanted to go, but don't fall into that trap. So I continued, I immediately cut off communication with that individual, and I just continued to work on building my business. As far as in the career, no, I've always been driven and focused. And yes, there are people who make those comments, but I love to ignore people. So I made those comments disappear. And I continue. But I think that's a very common question, and the goal is to just stick with. And there will be people also who, like me, just assume that the fact that you are climbing a ladder, that I was sleeping with the leaders in order to get where I wanted to go. That was assumed. It never was the case. So, I mean, as a woman who is ambitious and who wants to become a leader, all of that comes with the territory. You just have to continue to stand your ground. And only you want to know the truth. And people who can vouch for your character and what you stand for. And eventually all of the lies and the harassments will go away if you stick with it.
I also want to mention something else in relation to sexual harassment. It is so commonplace to just think only women get sexually harassed.
True.
And so it's a stereotype.
Yeah.
You know, I teach human resource, and I have students who are working in the hotel industry, and they would share their stories of male students getting sexually harassed in the hotel industry. And I don't want to single out any industry, but that was the experiences that were shared with me.
Right. Yeah.
And so they'll be like, Dr. Davis said, how do you deal with this? And my thing would always be, you maintain your professionalism, and you also take it to the next level. Speak to the individual first, and then you take it to the next level. And a lot of times, you know, it comes off as, I was only joking with you. You can't take a joke. Are you reading too much into nothing?
Yeah.
Right? And so it depends. If it gets to the point where you're not able to deal with it, you take it to the next level. Yeah.
Yeah. Good question. I like that.
Okay.
I like that.
So
It wasn't so bad.
all right. See? Not so bad. All right, let's go. You pick a question, and you're gonna ask me that question.
Okay, so what do you do when you work for a company that does not have a growth mindset, but you see so much potential in that organization, but your hands are tied? Really good question.
Yeah. So you're working for an organization that is not growth oriented, doesn't push growth and development and leadership, but you are that person, and you feel like your hands are tied.
And you see so many opportunities for growth.
Well, one of the things I would always say, first of all, know who you are and what it is that you're trying to achieve. You may not be able to win everyone, but what you probably can do is find somebody you can get as an ally to work with. And then you can roll out small portions of what it is and then take it in stages.
Right.
Sometimes you come with the grandiose and you come with the big picture and people don't see it, and so they shut you down.
Right.
But if you could find something small that you can start with, or you can find somebody who will be able to relate or identify, or if you're not able to even go along that route, you may be able to use your power and influence just to influence the people who you work around.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah?
I think too, it's important to also know the culture, and this is not always possible, but know the culture of the organization that you're going into, right? And just by even reading the values of the company, speaking to people, because sometimes we are responsible when we go into companies. Yes, we want a job. Yes, we want to have that paycheck. That's important. And we also go into that company, and sometimes the paycheck is needed and is helpful, but your mental health, your ability for growth, your connection to the job, do you love the job, also sometimes trumps that, because you spend most of your days in a job. Whether you are growing, whether you love that job is important. It's not just about the money. And so sometimes if you are in a place where you are growth oriented and you are attempting to grow the organizations or attempting to move the organization forward and nothing happens or it's not received, I always go back to looking at me. Do I need to stay here? Is this a place I need to stay? Yes, I know people need the money.
Yeah.
But is this a place that I'm going to be? I remember working on an organization some years ago, and the pay was really good. But the employees there, they were so disgruntled. And I never forgot, they would argue about the simplest thing, about the remote being in the wrong place. And I remember one of the employees said, boy, I get like 5 more years before my pension, before I retire. And literally that would be something she would say several times a week. I wouldn't say every day, but several times a week. All she was just there and counting the days for her retirement and her pension. And I'm like, is that really what we're doing?
And then sometimes you want to look at, what can I learn from being here? Because I know it's easy to say, you know what, leave and find somewhere else to go.
It is easy, but it's not always that easy.
You can also figure out what it is that I'm learning here. What is my next step from here?
Right.
So have some kind of action plan before you just say, you know what, I need to leave. Because you could be there for a learning purpose to get information for the next. I always say, if you cannot use it here, you'll be able to use it there.
Yeah. Awesome.
Right.
Good question.
Okay. How's it going so far? How you feel? You look tense.
Okay. I feel
like you're under the gun. Don't be under the gun. Breathe, okay? Breathe.
I'm not under the gun. Right. I'm good.
All right, so I'm going to read this one for you. All right, this kind of similar to the one that you just answered. As a leader, how do you motivate people who always complain and it seems like you can never please them?
I want you to answer that.
You want me to answer that?
Yeah.
Okay. So, in terms of motivating people, I would always say this. You cannot do a generic thing where you try to motivate everybody with one method. You have to get to know each individual employee and figure out what it is that motivates that person. What it takes to motivate that person as an individual. And once you know what motivates the individual, you could attempt to meet the individual needs. And that's why it's never a good thing for leaders to lead teams of large size, because you can't get to know your people. So 7 to 10, 15 max, at least you can have one-on-one and find out. Like, I remember working in an institution, and I will always share this when I teach on leadership and motivation. A particular boss would give things as a motivation. And I had an employee, a colleague of mine, we were on the same level. And when he would give her the movie ticket, the phone card, or whatever, she would bring it to me and say, here, because I don't know why this man gave me. Because that don't motivate. She wanted to hear you did a good job.
Right.
She wanted to hear, you know what, I have more meaningful work for you to do.
She wanted words of affirmation.
Yes. And so the gifts, and me, I was thingsy. I wanted the gifts. I wanted things.
Yeah.
Things is my love language. And so by him not knowing what it took to motivate her, she was very much demotivated.
Yeah.
And he was giving her things and wondering why she wasn't motivated.
So what I hear from you is really getting to know the people you work with and getting to know what makes them feel appreciated.
Yes.
Right. And do you think that you can turn around an employee who is constantly complaining? Is that something, when they get to that place, is that a sign that they are done? That they are, there's a saying that people, and I'm going to jack up the saying, but people they leave in their minds, but they physically stay again because they have to pay bills. Do you feel as if they're employees, those type of employees, you can't really help them anymore?
You would still have to have the conversation and to get a deeper understanding, because it may be other things going on in a company that they're disgruntled about. And so as a leader, you want to foster that open communication where you can speak to people and get to hear their heart and build up that level of trust. Because if somebody trusts you, they will give you more information. If they don't trust you, they're still going to be guarded and you cannot resolve the problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So get to know them, get to know what they appreciate, and be prepared to do the work as a leader, because that means that you now have to.
Yeah.
It's like kids. You have to treat each child differently. Yeah.
And as an employee, if you know, because I remember when I left one institution to go to another, I loved my job, but I started to become disconnected from it and demotivated. And I would go to work and I would complain. I was never a complainer. And so that's when I know that my time was coming to an end.
Right.
I started to complain about the work that I loved. And so I knew it's time for me to transition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Good question. One more. We got time for one more.
One more? Okay. Let's get a hot question.
Question for you too.
This one is easy. What are the most important leadership skills to have?
Oh, this is a good question. So, first of all, there are so many leadership skills that one must have. I believe the single most important one, though, is vision. You definitely need to have vision, because people need to be inspired by what you see, where you are taking them, and the path that you are on. If you don't have vision, employees really, it's easy, we talked about it just a minute ago, it's easy for an employee to become demotivated or disgruntled because they come into work and they see that they're just working day to day, and they don't see that there is a big vision and a big mission that they're working towards. And so definitely have a clear vision, and then you have to be able to communicate that vision. And so being able to have those communication skills, I think one of the things that I've seen, the challenges that I've seen in workplaces when I've worked with them, is leaders can have this big vision, they can put it on paper, they can put it on the wall, but when it comes to actually inspiring their team and getting buy-in with that vision, that's where it falls flat. And so being able to communicate that vision, and not just once, but over and over, repeatedly, so that, Pastor Miles Monroe used to say, repetition. He used to speak something about repetition, right? And he was known for just repeating to the point that we were tired. And I think that's when you get to the point that you are tired of repeating your vision, that means that you've done a good job of ingraining it into people. So vision and communicating are two key points. Anything else?
Well, I see you went to the more common ones, but the one that I like to emphasize is that of compassion for people. Because you could have the biggest vision, you could have all the goals planned and everything, but if you don't have compassion for people, then who's going to work this vision?
Yeah.
And so that having compassion for people is very important. Because what you don't want to do is, because sometimes as leaders, we want to lead and try to get the vision and heads roll.
Right.
As opposed to hearts roaring, where people actually want to be committed to your vision as opposed to be compelled to your vision.
And is that as a leader, do you find leaders have all of those qualities? Because in my mind, a visionary leader is generally someone who's results oriented, meaning that they are just so focused on the results that they sometimes have to work harder on the people side of it. What are your thoughts?
You have to strike that balance. Always have to have in the forefront of your mind is that I need the people for this vision. So no matter how grand and no matter how effective the vision can be, I cannot do this thing by myself.
Yeah.
And so you need the people. And so you have to have compassion. If you don't have that, because people always remember how you make them feel. And so you made me feel a certain type of way. Now you want me to buy into this vision.
Yeah.
And then sometimes we can deliberately sabotage the vision. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So just as a recap, what are some of the lessons that we talked about here?
So for me, what I would take away is that whether you're male or female, you in any kind of situation where you feel like you're being sexually harassed, you want to make sure you first of all know who you are and stand your ground. And if the person is not taking heed, you always want to take it to a next level. And I don't think you should be so intimidated that you cannot stand up if you feel like you're being treated unfairly or being sexually harassed. Yeah.
Yeah. That's it. That's
And
it.
then for in terms of motivating people, you want to make sure you know what it is that motivate the individual. Don't try to use a blanket method
Get to know
because
them.
people love different things and motivated for different reasons. And once you know the individual, you'll be able to provide or be able to better provide and meet their needs.
And lastly, we talked about the qualities of a leader. And so they definitely need
Yeah.
vision, communication, and compassion.
Definitely need compassion.
For people. All right, that's all we have time for.
That's all we have time
Thank you for
for.
listening to this episode of The Grow Show. Go and go.
Grow and go with Dr. Glenn and Keisha.
All right,
Take care,
all right.
everybody.